Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to absolutely demystify the completely overwhelming world of Amazon Web Services, or AWS, by cutting right through all the noise. We're focusing strictly on what truly matters. Now, if you have ever tried to learn cloud computing, you know exactly how paralyzing it can feel, right? But what if I told you that you don't actually need to learn the vast majority of it? Seriously. So let's dive into this blueprint. It's going to completely change the way you look at cloud architecture. When you're just starting out and you log into that AWS console for the first time, this is the number that just glares right back at you. Over 200 services. It's so incredibly common to look at this massive, endless list and think, wait, do I seriously need to learn all of this? And honestly, it is totally validating to feel overwhelmed and just flat out confused. People waste literally months watching tutorials, scribbling down handwritten notes, and trying to memorize every single thing, only to get into a job interview and totally freeze up, because they're just plugging in random services like puzzle pieces that don't even fit together, just praying the whole architecture doesn't catch on fire. But here is the massive sigh of relief. This tiny fraction right here, that is all you actually need. You really only need to master about 15 to 20 core services to build like 95% of real-world applications. The rest of the stuff, you can totally just learn it on the job whenever you hit some super specific niche requirement. So starting right now, we are going to stop trying to learn everything. Instead, we're going to lock in on the essential building blocks that make you legitimately, realistically, AWS literate. To do that, we're going to follow this exact roadmap. First up, the 5% rule and foundations. Then we'll hit the core, which is compute and storage. Next is the glue, networking and DevOps. Then we'll explore the AI frontier, put up some guardrails with monitoring, and finally, we'll wrap it all up with 7 hands-on projects. Think of this as your personal guided blueprint to breaking AWS down into super manageable little buckets. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the 5% rule and foundations. So before you touch any actual services, you've got to understand your foundation, stuff like your regions, your availability zones, and just getting your account set up securely. But once you're safely in, you're going to hit your first real hurdle, Identity and Access Management, or IAM. This is what dictates who can do what. Literally everything in AWS requires explicit permissions. So the absolute most crucial thing here is understanding the flow of how things actually get authorized. Let's say you want your virtual server, an EC2 instance, to grab some files from your S3 storage bucket. You never, ever hardcode passwords. Instead, you follow this flow. Step 1, create an IAM role. Step 2, attach a policy to it, which is essentially just a JSON document that explicitly grants S3 access to that role. And step 3, attach that exact role directly to the EC2 instance itself. Now your server acts as an authorized user. And let me tell you, this specific flow is everywhere in AWS. Moving right along to Section 2, Core, Compute and Storage. All right, with our permissions sorted out, we transition to the core building blocks. Because look, every application on Earth needs a place to run, that's compute, and a place to keep its data, that's storage. Now, in the modern cloud, applications usually run inside these neat, isolated packages called containers. And here is a massive point of confusion, which also happens to be a favorite interview question, the difference between ECS and Fargate. So with ECS, or Elastic Container Service, AWS helps you manage your containers, sure, but you are still the one responsible for managing the underlying servers. You're the one configuring the instance types, setting the minimum and maximum scaling, the whole shebang. Fargate, on the other hand, completely serverless. You literally just tell AWS, hey, I need this much CPU and this much memory, and AWS handles all the infrastructure management for you behind the scenes. It completely removes the headache of managing those servers yourself. Now, when it comes to picking your storage service, it is based entirely on your specific architectural need. It's a beautifully simple decision tree once you see it laid out. For example, if you need to store unlimited photos, videos, or backups, you use S3, which is object storage. But if you just need a standard hard drive physically attached to a single running EC2 server, you choose EBS, or block storage. But wait, what if you have multiple servers that all need to read and write to the exact same files at the exact same time? Well, that is when you pivot over to EFS, or Elastic File System. Super logical, right? But of course, storage isn't just about dumping files, it's about databases. And here is another absolutely critical architectural choice you have to make: relational versus non-relational. So you're going to use Amazon RDS when you have structured data that needs complex queries, traditional table joins, and really strict transactional consistency. But if your priority is pure blazing speed, massive scale, and really simple key value lookups, You go with Amazon DynamoDB. And the real beauty of DynamoDB is that it's a serverless architecture. That means it requires zero capacity planning from you, and it can literally scale all the way down to zero when it's not being used. All right, let's jump into Section 3, Glue, Networking and DevOps. So we've got our compute and we've got our storage. Now we actually need to look at the systems that connect these building blocks together safely. I know networking scares a lot of people, but listen, you do not need to be a hardcore network engineer to be cloud literate. It all starts with a VPC, or virtual private cloud. Just think of this as your own secure private building. If you own an office building, you don't just let anyone wander into your private rooms off the street, right? You control exactly who enters and who exits. Well, your VPC provides that exact same secure boundary in the cloud. Inside of it, you can set up public areas for stuff that needs internet access and completely private, isolated areas to lock down and protect your highly sensitive databases. And when you snap these networking components together, kind of like Lego bricks, you get this gorgeous, modern, highly available architecture. You've got your VPC keeping everything secure. You place a load balancer right at the front door to distribute all that incoming traffic evenly across multiple servers so nothing ever gets overwhelmed and crashes. You use Route 53 to map your actual readable domain name to that load balancer. You throw in CloudFront as a content delivery network to cache your data globally and just absolutely kill any latency. And finally, you use API Gateway to safely expose your backend services to the world. It is incredibly elegant when you step back and see how they all work together seamlessly. Which brings us to Section 4, the AI frontier. I actually really want to pause on this quote from our source material because it is a very blunt reality check. This is the 2026 differentiator. AI is not optional, it's expected out of you. We have completely moved past the era where just knowing basic cloud infrastructure was enough. Today, if you are building modern applications, seamlessly integrating artificial intelligence into your workflows isn't just a fun bonus feature, it is a fundamental, non-negotiable requirement of the job. But thankfully, AWS makes this surprisingly accessible, mainly through 3 core workload patterns. First up, there's Amazon Bedrock. This one is huge. It gives you managed API access to massive foundation models. You don't even need to know how to train your own AI. You literally just make an API call, send a prompt over, and you get a response back. Now, if you do need to build and train custom machine learning models entirely from scratch, that's when you'd use Amazon SageMaker. And finally, for your own day-to-day workflow, there is Amazon Q Developer. Think of this as an AI coding assistant built right into your code editor and the AWS console. It acts as the ultimate productivity multiplier. Okay, Section 5, Guardrails, Monitoring. Look, deploying all these awesome compute, storage, and AI services is super fun, but we desperately need guardrails to make sure our applications are actually healthy and, way more importantly, to protect our wallets. I seriously cannot stress this enough. Every single seasoned cloud professional has heard the horror stories, or honestly, lived through them. I have seen people spin up incredibly expensive resources just for a quick test, forget to turn them off, and then wake up to a multi-$1,000 bill for a simple Hello World app. Please do not be that person. Before you experiment with anything, go into the AWS console, find the billing preferences, and set a budget alarm. That way, you get notified at the literal second your spending crosses even a tiny threshold. Your other major guardrail is AWS CloudTrail. Because everything you do in AWS is essentially an API call, whether you're launching a new server or accidentally deleting a database, you have to have a way to track all of it. CloudTrail acts as the ultimate security camera for your entire AWS account. If someone deletes a production database, CloudTrail is exactly how you answer the absolute most crucial question: who did what, and exactly when did they do it? It is incredibly vital for your security and compliance. And finally, Section 6, 7 hands-on projects. Okay, we've covered the foundational theory, the core services, the networking glue, AI, and our guardrails. Now we're shifting into the final rapid-fire phase of this explainer. This is the crucible. This is where you actually have to apply what you've learned. Because to become truly AWS literate, you have to build these specific architectures. Project 1 is your classic 3-tier web app. This forces you to combine your VPC, secure your EC2 instances inside private subnets, connect an RDS database, and route the whole thing through a public load balancer. Project 2 shifts over to a modern serverless architecture where you combine API Gateway, Lambda functions for your custom logic, and DynamoDB. Then Project 3 gets into DevOps. Here you build an automated CI/CD pipeline so that whenever you push code to GitHub, it automatically builds and deploys your containers. Moving right along to our intermediate projects. Project 4 introduces you to event-driven architecture. Here, you aren't relying on direct manual calls. Instead, just uploading a file to S3 acts as a trigger, which EventBridge seamlessly routes over to a Lambda function for processing before finally sending out an automated SNS email notification. Pretty cool, right? Then Project 5 is where you actually integrate AI. You'll build a complete document analysis workflow utilizing AWS Managed AI services. You'll use TextRack to pull text right out of images and Comprehend to process the natural language, all orchestrated beautifully together. And finally, we have your advanced showcase pieces. Project 6 forces you to completely stop clicking around manually in the console. Instead, you will deploy an entire architecture stack purely through code using the AWS Cloud Development Kit, or CDK. And Project 7? This is your crown jewel, an advanced AI chatbot. You're going to use Amazon Bedrock to power the actual intelligence, API Gateway to handle all the chat connections, DynamoDB to save the user's conversation history, and an S3 bucket to host your front-end interface. This right here is the ultimate portfolio project to definitively prove your modern AWS literacy. At the end of the day, memorizing a list of 200 services is not going to get you a job, and passively watching tutorials won't either. The 5% blueprint we've walked through today gives you exactly the tools you need to build those 7 real-world projects. So take this framework, get into the console, build things, let them completely break, and then learn how to fix them. Because honestly, that is the only way you truly learn AWS. So looking back at those 7 real-world architectures, which project are you going to build first to claim your spot in the top 5%?